The year was 1939. The world was on the brink of a monumental shift, a shift that would alter the course of history forever. Nations were tense, alliances were fragile, and the air was thick with the anticipation of conflict. The world watched as Europe tumbled into a conflict that would become known as World War II. The seeds of this war had been sown in the aftermath of the First World War, with unresolved tensions and the rise of totalitarian regimes. This global war, the deadliest in human history, raged for 6 long years. It involved more than 100 million people from over 30 countries, drawing in the world's major powers into 2 opposing military alliances, the Allies and the Axis. It pitted nation against nation, ideology against ideology, and forever changed the course of the 20th century. Leaders like Churchill, Roosevelt, Hitler, and Stalin became household names, their decisions shaping the fate of millions. From the beaches of Normandy to the deserts of North Africa, the war's theaters of conflict were as diverse as they were numerous. Each battlefront presented its own unique challenges and horrors. From the frozen battlefields of Russia to the islands of the Pacific, soldiers faced extreme conditions. The harsh Russian winters and the sweltering heat of the Pacific Islands tested the limits of human endurance. The war touched every corner of the globe. No continent was left untouched, and the impact was felt far and wide, from the bustling cities of Europe to the remote villages of Asia and Africa. Millions took up arms, fighting for their countries, their families, and their very survival. The war effort was not limited to the soldiers on the front lines. Civilians played a crucial role, whether through industrial production, espionage, or resistance movements. World War II was a time of unimaginable destruction and loss. Cities were reduced to rubble, and entire populations were displaced. The human cost was staggering, with an estimated 85 million fatalities, about 3% of the world's population at the time. Yet, amidst the darkness, stories of courage, resilience, and the unbreakable human spirit shine through. Acts of bravery were not uncommon, as ordinary people performed extraordinary feats to protect their loved ones and their homelands. This is their story. This essay will explore the causes of World War II, its major battles, and its lasting impact on the world. We will examine the political, economic, and social factors that led to the outbreak of the war, and how these elements intertwined to create a global conflict. We will delve into the experiences of soldiers on the front lines and civilians caught in the crossfire. Their stories of hardship, sacrifice, and perseverance provide a poignant reminder of the war's human toll. Join us on this journey through history as we remember the sacrifices made and honor the legacy of this defining conflict. Through understanding the past, we hope to glean lessons that will help us build a more peaceful future. The roots of World War II ran deep, stretching back to the aftermath of World War I. The Great War, as it was known, had left Europe in ruins, with millions dead and entire cities reduced to rubble. The world hoped for lasting peace, but the Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, would prove to be a flawed attempt at securing that peace. The Treaty of Versailles, intended to ensure peace, instead sowed the seeds of future conflict. It imposed harsh penalties on Germany, including significant territorial losses, military restrictions, and crippling reparations. These measures were meant to prevent Germany from becoming a military threat again, but they had unintended consequences. Germany, burdened by crippling reparations and territorial losses, faced economic ruin and political instability. The German economy was in shambles, with hyperinflation rendering the currency nearly worthless. Unemployment soared, and many Germans struggled to survive. This economic despair created fertile ground for political extremism. In this climate of despair, a charismatic leader emerged: Adolf Hitler. Hitler, a former soldier and failed artist, found his calling in politics. He joined the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or Nazi Party, and quickly rose to prominence with his fiery speeches and promises of a better future. Hitler and his Nazi Party preyed on Germany's wounded pride, promising to restore the nation to its former glory. They used propaganda to spread their message, blaming Germany's problems on the Treaty of Versailles, the Weimar Republic, and various minority groups, particularly Jews. They espoused a dangerous ideology of racial superiority and territorial expansion. The Nazis believed in the concept of Lebensraum, or living space, which called for the expansion of German territory to provide room for the growing Aryan population. This expansionist policy would inevitably lead to conflict with neighboring countries. Meanwhile, in Japan, militaristic leaders sought to expand their empire's reach in Asia. Japan, like Germany, felt humiliated by the post-World War I international order. The Japanese military, which held significant influence over the government, believed that territorial expansion was essential for Japan's survival and prosperity. Italy, under Benito Mussolini's fascist regime, also harbored ambitions of conquest. Mussolini dreamed of recreating the Roman Empire and sought to expand Italian territory in Africa and the Balkans. His aggressive foreign policy further destabilized the already fragile European balance of power. These aggressive powers formed an alliance, the Axis, united by their desire for power and a shared disdain for the existing world order. Germany, Italy, and Japan signed the Tripartite Pact in 1940, solidifying their military and political cooperation. This alliance posed a significant threat to global peace and stability. As tensions rose, the world watched with growing apprehension. Diplomatic efforts to contain the ambitions of the Axis powers were largely unsuccessful. The League of Nations, established to maintain peace, proved ineffective in the face of blatant aggression. Diplomatic efforts to avert disaster failed. The policy of appeasement, pursued by Britain and France, only emboldened the Axis powers. They interpreted the lack of decisive action as a sign of weakness, and continued their aggressive expansion. On September 1, 1939, Germany invaded Poland, shattering the fragile peace and plunging the world into another global conflict. The invasion prompted Britain and France to declare war on Germany, marking the beginning of World War II. The path to war had been paved by years of unresolved grievances, economic hardship, and aggressive nationalism. The German invasion of Poland marked the beginning of World War II in Europe. On September 1, 1939, the world watched in horror as German forces under the command of Adolf Hitler unleashed a devastating assault on Poland. This invasion was not just a simple military operation, it was a calculated move that would set the stage for a global conflict that would last for 6 long years. Employing a new military tactic known as Blitzkrieg, or lightning war, the Germans combined the use of fast-moving tanks, mechanized infantry, and overwhelming air power to break through enemy lines with unprecedented speed and efficiency. This tactic was designed to create shock and disarray among the enemy forces, making it difficult for them to mount a coordinated defense. German forces swiftly overran Poland, shocking the world with their speed and ferocity. Within weeks, the Polish defenses crumbled under the relentless assault, and by the end of September, Poland was divided between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union, which had invaded from the east as part of a secret agreement with Hitler. Great Britain and France, bound by treaty to defend Poland, declared war on Germany on September 3, 1939. This marked the official start of World War II, but the initial response from the Allies was limited. Despite their declarations of war, there was little immediate military action on the Western Front. However, the initial months of the war were marked by a period of relative inactivity known as the Phony War. During this time, both sides fortified their positions and prepared for the inevitable conflict. But there were no significant battles. This lull in the fighting gave a false sense of security to many, but it was merely the calm before the storm. This uneasy stalemate was shattered in the spring of 1940 when Germany launched a series of lightning offensives. The German war machine, now fully mobilized, unleashed its blitzkrieg tactics once again, this time targeting Western Europe. In rapid succession, German forces conquered Denmark and Norway, securing vital strategic positions and resources. The swift and decisive nature of these campaigns left the world reeling and demonstrated the effectiveness of the blitzkrieg strategy. The Netherlands, Belgium, and finally France fell to the German onslaught. By June 1940, Paris was occupied, and France was forced to sign an armistice, leaving much of Europe under Nazi control. With much of Europe under Nazi control, Great Britain stood alone against the Nazi war machine. The British Isles became the last bastion of resistance in Western Europe, and the British people, led by the resolute Winston Churchill, braced themselves for a German invasion. Churchill's speeches galvanized the British public, instilling a sense of determination and resilience. The British people prepared for the worst, fortifying their defenses and readying themselves for the battles to come. The Battle of Britain, a months-long air campaign, raged in the skies above England. The German Luftwaffe launched relentless attacks, aiming to gain air superiority in preparation for an invasion. Despite facing relentless attacks, the Royal Air Force, aided by brave pilots from around the world, ultimately prevailed, thwarting Hitler's plans for invasion. The courage and skill of these pilots became legendary, and their victory marked a turning point in the war. While war raged in Europe, events in the Pacific would soon draw the United States into the global conflict. Tensions between the United States and Japan had been escalating for years, and the stage was set for a dramatic confrontation. On December 7, 1941, Japanese forces launched a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, a key American naval base. The attack was meticulously planned and executed, catching the American forces off guard and causing significant damage to the Pacific Fleet. The attack, which President Franklin D. Roosevelt called a date which will live in infamy, propelled the United States into World War II. The American people, shocked and outraged by the attack, rallied behind the war effort, marking the beginning of a new and decisive phase in the global conflict. In June 1941, Hitler broke his pact with Stalin and unleashed the full might of the German army against the Soviet Union. Operation Barbarossa, the largest military invasion in history, marked the beginning of a brutal four-year struggle on the Eastern Front. The German army, initially confident of a swift victory, was met with fierce resistance from the Soviet people. The vast distances, harsh climate, and scorched earth tactics employed by the Soviets slowed the German advance. The Battle of Stalingrad, a grueling six-month siege, became a turning point in the war. The German defeat at Stalingrad marked the beginning of the end for Hitler's ambitions in the East. The Eastern Front was a theater of unprecedented brutality. Millions of soldiers and civilians perished in the fighting, victims of combat, starvation, and disease. The battles fought on the Eastern Front, from the frozen wastelands of Russia to the rubble-strewn streets of Stalingrad, would leave an indelible scar on the landscape and the soul of a nation.
Du meine Arbeit für richtig hältst, ob du glaubst, dass ich fleißig gewesen bin, dass ich gearbeitet habe, dass ich mich in diesen Jahren für dich eingesetzt habe, dass ich anständig meine Zeit verwende.